Welcome to Bad Elizabeth. I'm your host, Gideon Evans.
And I'm your host, Kathy Egan Taylor. The premise of this show is exactly what it sounds like. Each episode, we profile a different Elizabeth, or a derivation of that name.
Like Zabeth.
Or Elzbieta.
Or Liz.
Who deserves to be called bad.
Yes, and the word bad can mean many things, especially when adultery is involved.
People don't really say stewardess anymore, do they?
Oh, that's our producer and engineer, Will Beckton of Jet Road Studios.
Hi, guys.
Our episode today is Betty Broderick. Welcome to Bad Elizabeth. I'm Gideon Evans.
And I am Kathy Egan Taylor. As simple as it sounds, it's about Bad Elizabeth, past and present.
Historical
characters. Hungarian countesses.
Medical show producers.
Page 6 residents.
So welcome. And of course, our wonderful engineer and producer, Will Beckton, joins us.
Hi, guys.
And we also have to give a shout out. She's not here, but our other producer, Amber Beckton.
Yeah.
Yes, and Amber Beckton, too, is another producer, not present in the room, but present in our minds and hearts. So today's episode is the story of Betty Broderick.
The Betty's what people called her.
They called her Betty Broderick.
I can't help but think of Betty
Rubble.
Betty Rubble. That ages me, right? Kids don't know what the Flintstones were.
I don't even think the Flintstones is allowed to be syndicated anymore.
Is it just like not PC?
I think it's canceled culture.
Why? What? Because he's a...
Well, remember when Fred would scream, "Are you out of your cotton-picking mind?"
Oh, right.
Things like that.
It was basically the Honeymooners, but with cavemen.
But in prehistoric times.
But Betty Rubble was way above Barney's
dating pool or
whatever.
whatever.
I mean, she was cool, and he was like a big dolt that had a dumb laugh.
Well, he had a job.
All right.
At the gravel pit.
Oh, did he?
I think everybody worked at the gravel pit.
It was the main business in town.
Well, some people worked at that restaurant where they gave you that giant bone that tipped your car over.
That was at the drive-in movie theater.
Oh, it was a movie theater. Oh, well.
On November 5th, 1989, Betty Broderick murdered her ex-husband, Dan Broderick, who was 45 at the time, and then his second wife, Linda Colkenna Broderick, 28, in their home as they slept.
Right.
So that's the crime. November 5th, 1989.
This is very true crime, this episode.
This is very true crime.
Not all of our episodes are.
And this was also an interesting true crime because it really sort of played out in the age of Oprah. And this is the time when suddenly Tom Selleck wasn't on the cover of People magazine. People like Betty Broderick were on the cover of People magazine. People love these stories.
So
Yes.
is this pre-Peterson? Pre-Scott and Lacey Peterson?
Way pre. Yeah, oh
Okay.
my gosh.
When was
Pre.
Peterson? Was that
Proto-Peterson?
90s?
Scott Peterson was in the 2000s.
Oh,
I
2000s.
think.
Jesus Christ.
Wow.
Okay.
So Betty was born in Bronxville, New York, which is a suburb of New York City.
It's like near Yonkers. It's very
where
nice.
Sarah Lawrence is.
Pretty upscale.
Yes, it's like right on the Hudson line.
Mm-hmm.
So she was born in 1947, which would make her 77, 78 today. She was one of 6 kids. She attended the College of Mount St. Vincent, which I imagine is a Catholic college, women's college. And she studied to be a teacher, which was typical sort of vocational profession in those days of young women.
And she sounds like a Catholic.
She's
Am I
a good-
discriminating by assuming that?
No. Her name is Elizabeth Ann Broderick. I mean,
yeah. Although she was Italian.
She was Italian, was born Betty Biscaligia.
Mm.
In 1965, she met Dan, her soon-to-be husband, who was a senior at Notre Dame.
The Fighting Irish.
The Fighting Irish, at a dance there. And they became a couple. As my mom would say, they started going together.
And I had heard he wrote on a napkin when they first met, like AMD or something, or MDA. Basically told her he's almost a medical doctor, like kind of bragging.
Oh.
Yeah, that was like one of his moves.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
well, that
kind of
says a lot about him.
Annoying, yeah.
Really annoying. So, they started going together, and then he went off to Cornell Medical School.
So, I mean, he backed up his napkin bragging.
Yes.
I don't even understand that. So he's decided to just write the fact that he was going to be a doctor on a napkin? What does
He
that mean?
thought it would get him laid.
It was almost like a sort of a contract, like, stick with me,
Hot
baby.
shit.
I'm going to be a doctor. You're going to get a MRS's degree, an MRS degree, being my wife, and I'm going to be a Dr. Dan.
But he did live up to it.
He was very impressive. He went to Cornell, and they married in 1969, and they had 4 kids. While going to Cornell, he was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Harvard Law and do a double major, so I'm going to be medical and law, which is a very smart idea because he got recruited by one of the biggest law firms in San Diego, in La Jolla, just outside, which is a very nice town. And he was a huge malpractice lawyer.
Before he became a high-paid lawyer, he was going through a lot of school.
Oh, he was full-time school, and Betty had 4 kids.
Whoa.
And she was teaching. She was watching other people's children. She was selling Tupperware. She was selling Avon products. A husband is full-time at school. You have to honor that because he's got to study. You know, we know that the end is going to pay off. He's going to have these degrees and he's going to have a great job. But meanwhile, you're raising 4 kids. That's 4 lunches. That's 4 baths.
Diapers.
That's 4 diapers. That's homework. That's all that type of stuff. Basically, this is based on faith. I'm going to deliver now. You're going to deliver later. This is the foundation of their marriage and their family.
She's making a lot of sacrifices.
And this is what she learned to do. This is what her middle-class family did before her.
So these people were not like wealthy people.
No, they were middle-class, but
they're on a track.
They're on a track to become very, very wealthy. Betty said of this time, she said she was raised to be a good Catholic wife. And his job, she said, was to slay the dragons while she protected the home and hearth.
But he didn't literally slay dragons.
No.
Let's clear that up.
No.
Malpractice lawyer.
So there were also very strict gender lines in the marriage, you know.
She was the great woman behind every great man.
Exactly.
Like that was that kind of like cliche.
Exactly. So and she basically said, you know, the Brodericks were their brand, so to speak. She created this brand, this family.
That's her claim.
So they move out to San Diego, and he's hired by the biggest law firm as a malpractice lawyer, which is a great law road to go down.
Another thing I heard about him, a weird detail, was that he nicknamed himself Count Da Money. It was his self-proclaimed like nickname for himself.
I was going to say, was that his rap name?
Count makes money a lot or something.
Right.
Count me in.
Yeah.
So they're living in San Diego, and he ends up becoming the president of the San Diego Bar Association. So he's done very well for himself.
And they're an attractive couple. We're allowed to say that,
they're
right?
a very good-looking couple. She's blonde,
He's
always
handsome.
perfectly manicured. Hair is perfect. Roots are always done, as us true blondes know. So they have a 5-bedroom house in La Jolla, which is a beautiful...
And how do you spell La Jolla?
It's L-A...
Don't look.
Okay, it's L-A, capital J-O-L-L-A, La Jolla.
Correct. Ding, ding.
And they belong to not one, but 2 country clubs.
Wow, why 2?
Well, I don't know.
Different Joneses to keep up with.
One is building a pickleball court, so they're just waiting. So they owned a ski cabin in Colorado. So, you know, they belong to 2 country clubs at home. They got 4 kids. They own a cabin in Colorado. Skiing is a very expensive sport, so they're living a nice life.
He's raking it in.
He's raking it in.
And any thoughts about malpractice? Isn't our medical system imploding because of all the insurance you have to buy?
Our legal system is imploding. This is the time when I think this was kind of the birth of it.
Oh,
before
really?
it really got to the point where we see billboards down the street everywhere and
Right.
see commercials everywhere. You know, like we're going to...
1-800.
Yeah, exactly. The
real
ambulance
pain.
chasing lawyers.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is ambulance chaser, is that?
Yeah, you're looking for injured people.
You're
It
looking
doesn't
for
have to
injured
be
people.
medical malpractice, but if somebody was working on a construction site and a brick falls on their
You're
head,
looking for
you
opportunity.
can sue someone there.
You're looking for opportunity. In fact, I was hit by a car in
Oh,
a
right.
crosswalk, and while I was still in the street, a guy handed me his card. He was a lawyer.
Wow.
So this was the birth of that. They're realizing, like, there's a lot of money here.
Yeah.
So in 1982, he starts his own firm, and he meets a woman named Linda Kalkina. He meets her because she is a Delta Airlines stewardess.
Did he meet her when she was a stewardess?
I believe he met her on a flight, or it might have been one of his associates met her and invited her to a Christmas party.
So she was a flight attendant. And speaking of flight attendants, we have a really cool guest.
We have a guest coming up in a little bit, Griffin Matthews.
Who was on
a terrific series called The Flight Attendant, where he played a flight attendant. So he knows all about this world.
And she was dismissed from her job at Delta for like being inappropriate as a flight attendant. Like she flirted with men and like sat on their laps and maybe drank.
We also have to think of this time what flight attendants meant too. Like it's sort of coming off of the 50s.
Oh, right.
People used to get dressed up to travel. It was an honor, you know? And then if you look at the old Pan Am uniforms, they're beautiful. They were designed by designers. So there was some sort of like cachet to being a flight attendant. It was almost like being a Playboy bunny.
If you're at a party and somebody says a bunch of stewardesses are coming over, you're like pretty excited.
There's like a trope,
Like
basically.
Lenny and Squiggy. It's like, it's Fleet Week. The sailors are coming to town. And like the stewardesses are coming to town.
Do you have to be good looking to be a flight attendant? Is that legal?
Remember, this is 1982. This is when Dynasty was on the air and Dallas. And like
Reagan.
the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders were sex symbols. And
Oh,
it was all
right.
like boobs and blonde hair, as it still is. Anyway, so she meets Dan at a party, and then he decides to hire her as an assistant. Now, this is the interesting thing. She had no legal experience, and she actually didn't even know how to type.
Oh, wow.
But soon she had her own office. People would say later on, she kind of resembled Betty, but 20 years younger because she was 20 years younger.
Oh, wow. And no kids, I guess.
No kids.
Yeah.
And Dan at this point is in his early 40s, late 30s,
Okay.
early 40s, he's meeting her. So he still has time for a second family if he wants one. So Betty kind of suspected that they had an affair. Dan did little things like he bought like a convertible. And there's a terrific TV movie that was on at the time about Betty Broderick. That's where Betty Broderick is played by Meredith Baxter Bernie in the role.
She was Bernie at the time, but then divorced.
Exactly,
What's
and divorced him. So,
and she's kind of the queen of Lifetime films, right?
At the time, it was a big move for her because she had been on Family Ties. And she was like America's sweetheart. And then she plays this, came out in 1992 called A Woman Scorned, the Betty Broderick story. And it was so good. It had such high ratings. They did a sequel the same year called Her Final Fury, Betty Broderick, The Last Chapter. So it was almost like a Nightmare on Elm Street franchise.
And if I remember correctly, that show Family Ties was really originally supposed to be about the parents.
And then it became about the kids.
And it became about, because he was so good.
Michael J. Fox.
Michael J. Fox.
As Alex P. Keaton.
Right, he was so good. But I think that must have been a strange experience to have like another character steal the spotlight.
Especially if it's a kid. Who's not really a kid. He's a 27-year-old playing a 16-year-old.
Oh, interesting.
So anyway, so she starts to suspect he's got a new assistant, Linda. She's lovely. She's not really equipped to be there. And he's got this new car. And he just keeps throwing money at her.
And he's spending late nights out.
He's
drinking.
working late. She's got 4 kids. That's full time. They got soccer practice. They got school. They got everything. So it's Dan's 40th birthday, which is a big deal. So she shows up at his office. And the thing that's so great in this movie is Meredith Baxter. Her character's always dressed to the nines. Like, it looks very early Versace, but it's not.
Shoulder pads?
Shoulder pads, the most unflattering haircut you can imagine. Lots of eyeshadow. So she shows up at the office for Dan's birthday.
Surprise him,
and he's not there. And it's close to 5 o'clock, so she wants to go to the beach and have a candlelit, because they live by the beach. Take him at dusk, and they're going to toast. He's been out all day at lunch with Linda, and she goes into Linda's office, and she notices that Linda on her desk has a picture of Dan.
Whoa.
From Dan in his 20s on her desk.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I think they're having an affair. So this is when Hell Hath No Fury, like a woman scorned, comes in. She comes home that night. She takes all of Dan's clothes and puts them on the lawn, and she burns them.
Rightly so, probably.
We've all done things like that. Not necessarily burned them, but we've done things. So then in 1985, Dan moves out, and then Betty really begins this reign of terror.
Even before she burned his clothes, I think they were having a lot of problems.
They were having lots of problems.
And they were fighting all the time.
Yes. And she
threw shit at him.
She did all kinds of things like that, but this was like the confrontation. When she went to the office she saw all that, she's like,
that was the end.
It's official.
Her head hit the ceiling.
Exactly.
Metaphorically.
Exactly.
And it's something twisted about the fact that it was like an archival photo of him. It was like
it was
like
yes.
a photo of
It's like Dan playing football. Exactly.
Yeah, like,
did it say Getty on it? Like the watermark? No.
So basically, he ends up moving out. He leaves her home in La Jolla. It's that beautiful home. He moves to another home with Linda, a separate place.
And there's some money or something?
She's getting a settlement.
Alimony.
I guess it's alimony of $16,000 a month.
Wow.
That's sizable to pay for the mortgage of the house, which is a 5-bedroom house across from the beach, and 4 kids probably going to private school, all that type of stuff. So she's paying for a lot of that stuff, but that's a sizable amount of money.
He was trying to get her to sign a settlement. There was a lot of fighting.
There was a lot of fighting. And the other thing, too, is he had been head of the Law Association.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows everyone in town, all the best lawyers. So part of her stuff was she thought she was being gaslit the entire time because she's like, you have the best legal teams around me. Everyone's telling me I'm crazy. Part of it was she was kind of crazy. She was driven into this state. So here's some examples of her reign of terror that he moves out of the house. She would leave horrible messages on his answering machine that he shared with Linda. And his children were at this point were given custody to him because she was so unhinged.
Oh, wow.
Didn't she like leave the kids
so
on
at times
his...
that period, like when she had custody of them, she sometimes would just drop one off at his house to sit outside in the cold, just to fuck
as
with
cold
him.
as it gets in San Diego.
By the beach, it can get cold.
Yeah,
it
at
can
night.
get breezy. You need a wrap.
That is questionable.
So basically, he got custody of the kids, but then she would leave messages on their answering machine that says, their children, your daddy dumped your mommy for a 12-year-old.
Oh, boy. She wasn't 12.
No, but she would just say that. At that time, she had a 10-year-old son named Rhett because Gone with the Wind was Dan's favorite book, which is interesting. At one point, she was like leaving a tirade in the middle, like just going off on the answer machine, and he picked up her son, who was 10, and he said, Mom, could you stop this? Because this is getting embarrassing. Because
the
obviously this is
10-year-old
playing
said that?
off in town. Yeah, he's like, Mom, this is
Yikes.
embarrassing for me. She said back to him, there are worse things in life than being embarrassed. I didn't cause this. Your daddy did. So it's the typical divorce, ugly divorce, pitting parents
She
against
lost
each
her
other.
mind. And I think, again, like she was sacrificing everything to make him who he was. And she believed that was part of what she did.
She created the Dan as we know and, today.
And then he pulled the rug out.
With a younger person.
Not that it means that she can stalk him.
She believed that Linda had stolen the life that she created, and her biggest fear was that Dan's just going to start over with family number 2.
Yeah.
Because Linda's young enough to have kids of her own. So it didn't stop. She got keys to Dan's house from one of her daughters. She went into the house and just showed up one day.
Inside of the house.
She got inside the house, and one of her daughters was there, and there was a pie sitting on the counter, and she's like, what's this pie? Did your father get it from the store? She's
Boston
like, no,
cream.
Linda baked it. So she took the pie, and she took it upstairs and put the pie and smeared it all of the clothes in his drawers. Something to do. Another time she showed up at the house, she drove her car through the front door of their house to quote-unquote scare them.
That's a big deal. You're taking it to a new level once you have an automobile crashing through a home.
And then later I saw this. I watched an interview she did with Oprah after the murder and she was in jail. Betty was on Oprah and she said, Dan should have been on the cover of Midlife Crisis magazine.
Huh. I love that magazine.
I did too.
I'm really into it these
I
days.
used to
When I was
steal
in
them
my
from my
20s,
parents.
I didn't really
I didn't know it was going to be a roadmap for the future.
Yes.
So basically, after all of this, they finally divorces her, and it took 5 years. And it was always in the paper because it was like the story of society.
Oh, so it was like cocktail conversation
Oh, it was
in that
everywhere.
area.
It was the buzz at all 2 country clubs. So this was a 5-year battle. She already moved out, and he sold that house without telling her, which she took umbrage with because she said, I helped create that home, and it's the only thing that has my name on it. I have no assets. So he basically got full custody of the kids and got a restraining order against her, but she didn't really honor it. And she's still getting her $16K a month. But when she would fuck things up, like violate the restraining order, he would deduct that.
Oh, wow.
Because you showed up at the house, I'm taking $1,500 off this month. She would argue later on, yes, it was $16,000, but I didn't always get it. Well, because Betty
drove through the front door.
drove through the front door.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to garnish your wages on that one.
The other thing she did, too, is that when she found out that they were getting remarried, she got into their home and she found the guest list for Linda and Dan's wedding. And she went through all their friends who had RSVP'd, yes, they're coming. And then she individually called them and said, Jody, why the hell are you going to that goddamn wedding?
Right.
And they
That's
were like,
always hard for friends.
It's very hard. And they kept saying, like, Betty, you got to back off.
And I heard that when they did have their wedding, Dan and Linda, that they had like really serious
Tight security. The joke was his brother said, maybe you should wear a bulletproof vest.
Oh, yeah.
But Dan, who was on the cover of Midlife Crisis magazine, said, if I wear a vest, I'll look fat.
Okay.
So they
Fair
got
point.
security instead.
They get like a Pope Mobile as the
Yes.
matrimonial car.
Like a bubble.
Exactly. Anyways, they have their wedding, but Betty ended up buying a gun of her own with no problems. Even though she had been, throughout this period of 5 years of stalking and all that stuff, she had been institutionalized. She had been arrested. But she was still able to buy a gun.
And she went to do training and stuff, I heard.
She went to the gun range, did all that stuff.
She really learned how to
Yes.
shoot. So she took it seriously.
Yeah, you think you could just pull it out? You don't know how to shoot a gun.
Yeah.
So here's the murder. So Betty drives to Dan and Linda's house, and she still has her daughter's key. Meanwhile, she's got 4 kids. They're all they're going through shit.
Like one of them takes the dad's side.
Oh, yeah, that'll come out in the trial. So the night of the murder, she drives to Dan and Linda's house. She let herself in, and she said she intended to scare them with the gun and then shoot herself. She was going to do this dramatic thing, scare
murder,
them, and then suicide in front of them. She wasn't planning on committing murder. And she had said in the past that she had tried committing suicide by slitting her wrists. So there was a precedent to this type of behavior.
Yeah.
So basically, she went into the room. She startled them. Linda awakens, and Betty immediately says the gun went off. She's like, within 6 seconds, I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Linda's murdered. Dan gets hit, and he starts to reach for the phone. So he's still alive.
Yeah.
And she comes over as he's in his dying state, reaching for the phone. She rips the phone out of the wall.
So he can't call for the police.
She basically leaves him there to die.
Yes.
She goes to her oldest, has already moved out of the house. She goes to her oldest daughter's house. She says, I just killed your father and his wife.
Did she tell the police?
She called the police and she said, the gun went off. She pretty much said, yes, I did it. But her defense was insanity and the gun went off. She didn't intend it to go off. But the fact that she ripped the phone out of the wall as Dan is dying, that was kind of a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because that was consciously saying, like, I'm preventing him from saving his life. So she goes to trial. There's 2 trials. The first trial ends in a hung jury because not everyone agrees. She goes to a second trial where she's charged with second-degree murder. Her oldest daughter testified against her. The youngest, Rhett, who was the one that early with the dancing machines, like, Mom, you're embarrassing me. He was actually interviewed by Oprah, and he was at 10 at the time of the murders. And when he was interviewed on Oprah, he said to Oprah, this is considerably later. He's probably 17 at the time. He goes, she's a nice lady. Everyone here would like her if you spoke to her about any other topic than my dad.
Oh,
so
interesting.
Really, the whole driving force is Dan.
It
Dan
was
made
like
her
an
do
obsessive thing.
Exactly.
When did Fatal Attraction come out?
That
Do you remember?
came out in 1992.
Oh, it was much later.
Hold on. 1992 movie, Fatal Attraction. Michael Douglas's character is named Dan.
Oh,
and
so it might have been influenced by that.
Yes, because there's a scene where when she's sitting in the room, she's got the phone cord and the Christmas lights are beeping on and off, and she's against the wall and she's calling him and she's like, I will not be ignored, Dan.
Glenn Close.
Exactly. Glenn Close did that.
But is it, I will not be ignored? Is that a direct quote?
That's a direct quote.
Wow.
Betty Broderick said
Oh.
that on one of her messages, and apparently that showed up in Fatal Attraction as a line as well.
Did somebody kill a rabbit in the Betty Broderick story?
She burned his clothes.
Okay, yeah.
And she drove a car in his front lawn, and she
Yeah.
put cake in his drawers. So basically, the verdict is she gets 15 years to life, but she's not eligible for parole until 2034. She keeps coming up for parole, but she's like, I didn't do anything wrong. So that's the problem. And she's going to be 84 when she's up for parole. She says that she's regretful, but she's not remorseful. So that's why she's never been paroled, because she just has no remorse. I've read a few interviews with people with her, because initially this story was in the papers before the murder even happened, because it was one of those society divorce trials that people really loved.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of journalists who were onto her story early on before the murders happened, because they were following divorce, who later on visited her in jail, and she would just bitch about things like, I can't get my roots dyed here. Luckily, I have a color TV. She talks about how she works the system. She seems to be quite content in jail, quite frankly, because I think she likes the order of it and she understands it. Another sensationalist trial that happened 10 years later was the OJ trial. And she always compared herself to Nicole Simpson later on, because she said Dan controlled her the same way Nicole Simpson was controlled by OJ, and she lived in terror.
Did Dan ever, there was no abuse or anything?
I don't think he ever physically abused her.
Yeah.
I don't think he ever did. So in pop culture, I've mentioned the Meredith Baxter burning, the Betty Broderick story. That was huge. It also, she was kind of the rise of Oprah, this type of journalism.
Yeah. I remember Oprah in those years. That was such a fun thing to watch Oprah.
She was
like before it got really classy.
Before she was giving away cars and stuff like that. She came from a journalism background, and she was good. And if you watch the interviews with her, she doesn't back down, because Betty's still living in her la la land. Like she did murder 2 people.
So is it literally like a jailhouse interview?
It is a jailhouse interview. She does. Yeah, and she just never comes across as sort of likable or relatable. This was her brand. This was her direction. This was her course. And it was upended by this woman.
Do you think when she went in there, she was mostly angry at Linda or at Dan?
I think she was very angry at both, but I think she took it out on Linda.
She did shoot her first.
She fired off like 5 rounds.
Does she stick with her, I was just going there to commit suicide in front of him
She still
story?
stands by that. She said she's regretful but not remorseful.
Remember the Lorena Bobbitt thing?
Yes.
This was a big story back, was it 80s or 90s?
We knew each other at the time, so it was
Okay.
probably like mid-90s to later 90s.
And that whole thing, I think, the popularity of it. She ends up like her husband maybe had an affair.
Her
She
husband
cut
was a
off his
cheat,
penis.
so she cut off his penis
in
and
the
threw it in
middle
the
of
woods.
the night.
Yes.
Right. And I think part of what made that story super popular was that like there were a lot of women who were like, good, she should do that. It's wish fulfillment.
It is. And I think it's the same thing
Is it the same thing?
I think it's pretty similar. I mean, think with Lorraine Bobbitt. How can I get on him? Like, he's cheating on me, cut off his dick.
So this guy, Dan, was he the villain in women's minds? Or did women think this woman was fucking nuts?
I think a lot of women related to Linda at that time was probably 42.
Yeah.
And I've heard similar stories, we've all have. Like, dad decided to go for a younger woman. And so of course, Dan was the villain to a lot of women. Like, yes.
He deserved what was coming to him.
I get to at least live through her, but I don't have to shoot my husband.
Exactly. That's what I was wondering.
I get the satisfaction of watching this story.
And maybe there's also people just love successful rich people like
going
failing.
Down. Of course.
So maybe there was also that of like these people were living the life, they had money, and then it all went wrong, and that's a good feeling because I'm not that happy.
We love to see people on top fall.
Yeah.
We love those stories.
And is he sympathetic in any way? I mean, other than the fact that he's murdered?
He didn't seem like a bad guy.
Yeah.
He also didn't seem like a great guy.
I mean, obviously super smart and super ambitious.
What's Betty done now? Just kind of like this beleaguered, like my crazy wife, even though I cheated on her.
She got too crazy.
He
didn't know what he was getting into.
I picture him probably leaning on that as a justification for cheating.
Right.
The first thing you do is call someone crazy. And once you label someone that, you can't unlabel that. It sticks. And also he had the best fleet of lawyers at his beck and call.
Yeah.
So she's still in jail. We're familiar with the story of Dirty John. It was a podcast. It became a series. Dirty John 2, the second series,
season.
is called The Betty Broderick Story.
And there's a movie and a podcast.
And there's a movie and podcast with that.
The movie's with Amanda Peet.
And Amanda Peet, it's a TV series. It's a streamer. When that Dirty John came out in 2020 with Amanda Peet, the Betty Broderick story, she talked to Oprah was really the journalist that drove this whole story and made it a household name. Amanda Peet's take on your character. How did you take on this character of Betty Broderick? And she said he was gaslighting her. Her identity was wrapped up in being Mrs. Dan Broderick, which I think that really says a lot because I think women of that generation, they were called Mrs. Dan Broderick. You were Mrs. Dan. That's how you signed your checks, right?
Or if you heard your mom answer the phone, she'd be like, Mrs. Philip Beckton.
The Egan residence, it was your brand. Her identity was wrapped up in being Mrs. Dan Broderick. And so when she got that taken away, she just became completely untethered. She didn't know who to be and what to be. It was just the rug was pulled out beneath her. Dan landed fine. She didn't. And to what extent she was mentally ill before that, no one knows what the answer was.
Well, I love the quote from the daughter. She's like, fine, unless you
her son,
bring him up. Or, was that the son?
She's a lovely woman unless you talk to her about my dad.
Yeah, I love that. And also, it kind of reminds me of Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, the cleaning woman.
Lady. Oh my God.
Cleaning woman.
Do you remember that? What makes them go crazy?
It's just random? Well, I think it's based on a past infidelity.
Like his dad ran away with the cleaning woman.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. But he was totally fine, completely reasonable person, except for that one trigger.
Exactly. And that's kind of similar to this thing. It was like the fact that she was a Delta Airlines stewardess who was 21 when she got fired. So she didn't have a long career there, but it was that trope is like, he ran off with the stewardess. He ran off with the assistant. He ran off with the maid. It was a real simple, this is the setup, and we understand it. There's been many books written about this case. People are fascinated by it. She also wrote a book of her own that's self-published in 2015, and it's basically a tirade against Dan. Every chapter, she's still pissed at him. There was a trope around town, and this was actually like a trope everywhere. Amongst divorce attorneys, they come in and warn and say, my wife is the next Betty Broderick.
Oh, interesting.
Like, don't Betty Broderick me. Don't go Betty Broderick on me, or you're getting yourself Betty Broderick.
Like somebody who goes crazy.
Yes, exactly.
Does it feed into stereotypes about women?
Of course it does. Of course it does.
It's kind of a shame, right?
So the book was Betty Broderick, Telling on Myself.
So Betty published her own book in 2015, but it's basically just tirades, page after page, tirades against Dan. So she's still not remorseful.
Men maybe were into this case. Like, women were into it because they were like, he got what he deserved, and men were into it because it's like,
these crazy bitches
she's like
do everything.
my wife, and
exactly.
she's crazy. So it was like a perfect storm. Because if you look at this case, like, there's no mystery there. Like,
There's
you
no
know
mystery.
who killed, and they're not like fascinating people.
I think people also love stories of rich people going down.
Yeah, she was attractive.
She's attractive. That's why people
They're
are
both
still
attractive.
obsessed with the Kennedys and all that type of
Right.
stuff. I would say she's bad because she murdered.
Yeah.
Even though she could say it wasn't premeditated, it pretty much was. It was building to that point.
If you go to take shooting lessons at a gun range, that's premeditated.
I wouldn't know how to use this thing.
Yeah, you don't need to do that to kill yourself.
Well,
no,
yeah.
That's a fair point.
They don't teach you, like, put the gun in your mouth.
Yeah.
Put it up your mouth.
Right.
At the time, in 1989, divorce rates were about up to 50%.
Oh, okay.
So they were an all-time high, and there were many married women whose husband cheated on them. Like, that was often the circumstances. And women who didn't work, and they were mothers. They worked as mothers and housewives, which is work. And so then their husbands leave, and they're left high and dry. You know,
Yeah.
do I get a job at a department store? I've never worked in the world outside of my household. Everyone loves these murder trials. They're so, and this was also when Court TV was actually became a station.
That must have catapulted
So
it
it was
into the
catapulted. It was on.
zeitgeist, yeah.
Everyone was covering this trial, and I did a trial, a murder trial, back in 2001.
For who?
It was for NBC News, and it was about this couple. They were Harvard professors, and both wildly accomplished. And I think both were one was from Germany, one was from Latin America. And he was a doctor. He was a professor at Harvard, but he was a doctor. And I don't remember what she was, maybe history or something. He had an online, it was like sort of the rise of like kinky chat rooms. And so he liked to dress in bondage and women's clothing online. And they had 3 adult children, also very accomplished themselves. Like one was geared to be like in the Olympics as a swimmer. They were all adult children, at least 18 and older. And they lived outside Boston, a beautiful town in Boston, gorgeous. And so the story was, mother and father went to walk their golden retriever in the park, and it was a gated park. He left something in the car. He came back. She had been bludgeoned to death. He finds her, screams for help. Cell phones are around. He's also a doctor. She dies in the park. That's the case. Then we hear about his online life, all this type of stuff. So I'm there covering this, and it's everything we can pick apart to make it funny.
Yeah.
The youngest daughter always wore red dresses. We had a story about her. Why is she wearing red dresses to a courthouse? Whatever. And we would play pool at night and joke about it and all that stuff. And I remember when the verdict was read in the courtroom, and he was guilty. So mom's dead, dad's going to jail. And just looking at those 3 children and watching them crumble, it was awful. I felt so awful.
It's real people.
It's real lives
and real
that are ruined.
misery.
And courtrooms are small.
And courtrooms are small,
intimate.
and I just remember, I had to report back to MSNBC, and I remember like the local sound guy, he was like, "What happened?" And I just burst out crying. And I just remember him looking at me and go, "Take a minute. Take a minute." And then now it's just like, I can't do this. This is too awful.
Yeah.
I had a really weird moment because these are also like people.
Yeah.
I went to downtown LA, a courtroom, just to do research for like a project that had to do with a jury. And I just went into the first courtroom that I saw, and it was Lance Ito's courtroom.
Oh my God.
And so I just sat
That's
through
OJ's judge.
Yeah, through a day of court, and it was very unremarkable. It was just like it was like his normal day, a non-OJ day.
Yeah.
But my main takeaway was he took a sip of coffee that must have been like old coffee, or he took a sip of coffee and grimaced. That's like my main humanizing memory of Lance Ito.
Judge Ito hates bad coffee too.
Right.
And the coffee at the courthouse is horrible.
I'm sure. Maybe the media is bad Elizabeth to some degree.
Well, Gideon, what is your take on
what
this
do you think?
particular Elizabeth?
I mean, I get her madness, and I get how her head hit the ceiling because she did put so much into
Their lives.
And that's hard. And I do also get what she went through with her expectations of what if she grew up with like her parents telling her you should be a good wife and like have children and that's going to be your life, and you grow up with this idealized vision of what that's going to be.
It's your job.
When you kind of go into it blindly, you do all this work, and having 4 children is just hard. If he's always working, I get what must have been going through her head.
When he's working and she complains, he comes home late. He's like, "I'm working." He can say, "I just made us $7,000 today. How much you make us?" And she'd be like, "I did the beds and I made sure the laundry and I got the kids bathed." And there's,
It's
like
hard to complain.
it's a full-time job that's not monetized.
Well, it's also
Totally.
not like you're saying, like he can show money, but then like the homemaker role, it's almost like a goalie. Like you don't notice something unless there's a fuck up.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, like if it's a perfect house, you kind of don't notice it. You only notice like when the bed's not made.
So I get why she flipped out and this new woman. I mean, that being said, I do think you can seek therapy before you resort to like taking your car and running it into the front door of his house. And now there probably are like 8 different medications you can take to probably...
Not at once.
Well, yeah. These days you can have a therapist online.
There's Xanax.
He certainly had the money to pay for it.
Well, the other thing, too, is if you can imagine, they both came from Catholic families, Italian Catholic, Irish Catholic. He went to Notre Dame. You didn't have divorce. You also didn't believe in birth control.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, these
and
are
there's
things...
a lot of guilt over
There's a lot of guilt.
She
and
didn't
like,
want to get out of
she
it
didn't
because she was brought up with religion.
Exactly. And it was really shameful to be divorced in the 70s. As I recall, like being raised a Catholic and seeing like, oh, so-and-so's getting divorced. It was like, whoa.
Yeah. I think another thing, I think we even talked about it the other day a tiny bit, like they were new money. They kind of grew up not rich and then they had money. And I think when you know what life is like before you have the money and then you have it, you act a lot stranger than people with, who've always been rich.
Memberships.
And also this idea that you can lose it again or things can go wrong, like that fear.
Well, there's the fear of that, of going back. And also the Pandora's box is like, you never had this money before. You didn't know you needed this much money. Because when you start making money, then you need that money because you're like, well, we got 2 country clubs. We got the ski house in Colorado, and keeping up with the Joneses grows.
I think the pain of like him being with another woman was compounded by the fact that there was all this money and she took credit for helping create that money.
And then she's nothing.
But if he was like an elementary school teacher and they had a simple life and then he had an affair, she might have gone bonkers, but I do think the money probably changed the equation.
Well, it's also, it was spotlit, like because they were society people, and he was well known in the community and they were an attractive couple. Even if they weren't talking behind her back, which they probably were, she couldn't go in any supermarket without thinking, shame, Dan.
It wasn't even, in her case, it wasn't even like a theoretical thing. She literally saw the wedding guest list.
Exactly. Of all her friends who are now Dan's friends, no longer her friends. Who does she talk? And also, I'm sure her calling and bitching to everyone is like, Betty, this is getting old. I think at her time, it was just the spotlight was on her all the time and she wasn't going to take it lying down. So I think that from what I've caught up with like various parole hearings and interviews, so like she seems to be happy in jail. She seems to be doing okay.
Yeah.
I love that for her.
Me too. I think like maybe I just read books all day and I could really teach myself Spanish.
Learn how to roll the R's finally and stuff like that. So Gideon, you're leaning bad?
I mean, she's definitely bad for sure.
For me, it's the kid stuff.
Well, that's terrible.
Yes.
Like the amount of like kid endangerment and all the twisted psychological games that she made them
planting seeds like your daddy wants a new family now.
That's bad
and the youngest
that's
being
the
10.
Gets me,
He's a 10-year-old boy. So yeah, I think pitting the kids and I think growing up I saw so many of my friends' parents go through divorces that were awful. And we all know stories of people divorced. It's so ugly and passionate and horrible. And it's horrible when you put the kids in it. And she did put her kids in the line of fire.
And I think what you said earlier too is true, Kathy, that like attitudes have changed over divorce.
Of course.
And the fear of like admitting a failure and having a divorce, that was sort of the way people looked at divorce back in the 80s and the 70s. But now it's just like, all right, for some people, it's a good decision and it's a way to like make both parties happier.
Exactly. And also you think about sort of like the financial constraints she was in. I mean, it's such a big transaction financially.
Yeah.
Also, I think there were not a lot of people for her to turn and talk to.
Yeah.
People will always be thrilled with stories of wealthy people, falls from grace, stories of infidelity, stories of mistrust, power struggles and wealth within families will always be fascinating to people.
Yeah.
And there's so much we see in pop culture there are those stories, but the real life stories, we get so involved in and we forget that they're real life people.
Totally. And the particulars of the story probably fed into her rage, like him being with this woman who hasn't sacrificed much yet.
Well, it's kind of the metaphor like he got his, midlife crisis red Corvette. I'm trading in my old car, the family station wagon, for my two-seater. I'm trading in you for Linda. She's 21.
Exactly. The former, they call them stewardesses, flight attendants.
Waitresses in the sky.
It is like people attach this sexual thing to flight attendants, but I think that probably made her even angrier.
There's also this sort of intrigue with flight attendants because they travel the world. They meet all kinds of people. And the other thing, too, is like even as a teenager, when you break up with your first love, it's almost like experiencing a death, but it's the death of what your future was going to be.
Right.
And then you have to see that their future's going on without you. And imagine that.
It's like sliding doors.
It's like that great Paltrow film.
Right.
She built this whole life that she just saw taken away. And like literally it was in the same town.
Yeah.
But that doesn't give her a pass.
No.
There's always a mystique attached to flight attendants. And in fact, there was a series.
Yes. And I think we mentioned it earlier. And
we will be talking.
We're lucky enough to have
Griffin Matthews on, who played a flight attendant on the show.
Yeah, well, we want to know his thoughts about the Betty Broderick story.
Exactly. I think you could tell this story to anyone and they'd have an opinion about it.
For sure. So he's in where? Spain?
He is in Madrid.
Lucky him.
Joining us now is Griffin Matthews, an actor, writer, and dad of two little boys. You'll know him from such shows as Dear White People, the series You, which is streaming on Netflix right now, and of course, The Flight Attendant. He's also known for his impeccable fashion and philanthropy. In 2005, he founded Uganda Project, which supports the education of teenagers and young adults in Uganda. He co-wrote the documentary award-winning musical Witness Uganda, in which he starred in Off-Broadway. Griffin joins us from his new home in lovely Madrid.
Hola.
Hola.
We're finishing breakfast right now, and you're about to get ready for dinner.
See.
Tell us about you're in the future.
I'm in the future, but dinner at 6 o'clock, 6:20 in Madrid. Dinner doesn't take place until 9 p.m.
Wow.
Nothing is even open until 8 p.m.
Is that siestas?
Well, we just siested, and now we're like finishing up our workday, and then dinner was going to happen in about 3 hours.
You must be hungry.
This is my new life.
What time does your day begin?
So the days in Spain are longer. Everyone told me this when I was moving here. They said, get ready. The days are incredibly long. So my day starts generally around 8:30, 9 o'clock. School starts at 9 for the kids, and then they're out of school at 5:30. Everything shuts down between 2 to 5 for lunch. In fact, you kind of can't get any lunch at 1 p.m. It's not happening. So prepare to starve or drink. Starve or drink. That's the option. Right now, we're doing Tinto Veranos, which is like a summer drink.
What's in that?
Everything. It's wine and fruit, and it's who knows. I just drink it.
Better not to
I don't ask questions. No preguntas.
Smart move.
So let's talk about The Flight Attendant.
Great.
Tell us a little bit about that experience of working on that show.
The Flight Attendant was probably, to date, my favorite job that I've done because, strangely enough, we played flight attendants and then we actually flew around the world to shoot it. Like, that was just unheard of. I got the job when I was in LA and I had to move to New York to do it. And then like a week later, we were in Thailand shooting season 1. So we went from Thailand, then we came back to New York, then we went to Rome. And this is the thing about shooting a show like that. Normally, you see each other in the hair and makeup trailer, you all go home, you know. But we were traveling together. So we were seeing each other in our pajamas, like on long haul flights. We were drinking together on long haul flights to Bangkok. That's a very long flight. It felt like adult summer camp with Rosie and Kaylee and Yasha. It was a crazy experience. And it was a lot of fun to shoot. And we became very, very close. In real life, we became very, very close.
So it's Kaylee Cuoco, Rosie Perez, Josha Mamet, and T.R. Knight.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big, heavy-hitting cast.
It's like so interesting to see people that you've watched before, you know them from television. Kaylee, Rosie, and Zasha are exactly how you would think they would. Like, they are as friendly and funny and down to earth as the characters that they play on TV. That was like such a beautiful surprise. Everybody is very much themselves, and we were very quickly a family. TR is adorable, and I had a crush on him when he was on Grey's Anatomy.
Oh, we all did.
He's just as cute.
I can imagine.
Getting cuter. He's in his daddy mode.
He's aging well.
On the show, The Flight Attendant, you actually took a lot of flights. So I guess that was kind of a method role for you as a passenger on a flight. Did you observe the flight attendants, and what did you learn?
All I did was watch the flight attendants. As we were shooting the show, when the show was on hiatus, all I was doing was watching the flight attendants. I was thinking, what are they actually talking about? What do they know? They know more than they're, letting on. Also, when the show came out, it was strange to be on planes because flight attendants would come up to me and somewhere in the middle of the flight, tap, tap, are you? And I would say, yes, I am. And then they'd want to talk about the show. They'd bring me free drinks. That happens often.
I would imagine.
It does happen.
The other thing, too, is like when there's turbulence, like I was on a flight to Miami once and the drink cart had to be returned 5 times because the turbulence was so bad. And you look at the flight attendants like, are they cool? Are they cool? Are they cool? They always are my measurement. Do you use any of that sort of insight?
What I was basically using was I realized that the flight attendants are running the ship. And so like being kind to the flight attendants gets you far. It gets you free drinks. It gets you multiple snacks. And they were like, we got you. The code that I learned was be nice to the flight attendants. They know everything. They are running the ship.
Well, I think there have been studies too about flight attendants because they have to hide their anxiety so that they don't let on, the customers won't see that side of them. And if there is turbulence and it's serious, they still have to pretend everything's fine. Is that something you saw? Like, did you ever have any of those experiences where they just have put on a good face?
What I realized, obviously, they are flying day in and day out. And so they've kind of seen everything. They've been on bumpy flights. They know things. They're like kind of unfazed, which obviously in our show, there was a murder mystery going on. And we had to always look like we were unfazed. I started to realize that the flight attendants, they were wearing masks. They're just wearing masks. They're acting.
That's interesting. And I love the show. It's great. We bring you on. We're talking about Elizabeth Broderick, Betty Broderick. And she was kind of one of the first stories that really blew up on Oprah, where sort of Oprah's subjects became People magazine covers. You know what I mean? And I watched some interviews with you in the past. You said you kind of grew up on The Cosby Show.
I did.
So I imagine you watched Oprah growing up, or you're familiar with Oprah.
Every day.
Every day?
Every day.
Okay, good.
Every day.
I watched Oprah's interview with Betty Broderick, and Oprah's a good journalist.
She was.
She's a tough-ass journalist. I mean, we have to remember that's the world she came from, and so's Gail.
She's incredible.
So basically, we want to sort of talk to you about the story, this case itself, and about American wealth and jealousy and all those fun themes.
Great.
So basically, the background is Betty went to college. She met Dan, her husband. He ends up becoming not only a lawyer, but also a doctor. So they end up relocating to a nice area outside of San Diego.
La Jolla.
Meanwhile, Dan hires a young woman to be his new legal assistant, and she is a flight attendant.
She was.
Oh, boy.
You say, oh, boy, as if you kind of know there's something.
Well, I get scared of she was.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I mean? Anytime someone says she was, this can't be going anywhere good.
There's a couple of she wases with Miss Linda.
Linda Colkina.
The day she kind of discovers they had an affair, she shows up at the office for his birthday.
Great.
But he's been out all day at lunch with Linda. And there's a picture of Dan in younger days on her desk. They end up moving to a new house. Meanwhile, Betty has a beautiful house in La Jolla. Her child custody, it's $16,000 a month. This is back in the early 90s.
That's a lot of money.
So she ends up one night showing up at their house with a gun, intending to scare them. But they instead startle her when she wakes them up from sleep, and she shoots them both to death.
And with Linda being a former flight attendant and you being...
Having played one,
so that counts.
You have insight into their world that we don't.
Well, it sounds like this is madness. I mean, it's an episode of The Flight Attendant, except Kaylee doesn't live. So, that's the end of the series.
Explores themes of jealousy and entitlement. I mean, I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about that. We're calling her a bad Elizabeth because she murdered people, but at the same time, we can sort of understand how these...
Some people related to her.
People related and were driven. Like, jealousy is a driving factor.
What was that politician, the American politician? Did he run for president? John? His wife
Edwards.
had cancer?
John Edwards.
Oh, my God.
John Edwards. I watched an amazing interview with his wife. Is it Elizabeth?
Yes.
Is her name Elizabeth?
Yes.
And it was about the affair that John had had. And she said something, I've never forgotten it, because it resonated so deeply in me and I think a lot of people. She said, I was here with John when he was nothing. So everything that he is, I built.
Wow.
There are people that build it with them. And then there are people that come in and want to steal what I built. And so on some level, if we're talking about Miss Betty, I understand how if you go from we had nothing and then I built this with you. You might be the face of it, but I built it. And she was like, no woman gets to come in here and destroy what I built. And that's Greek, that's Shakespearean. Somehow every story you hear, you put yourself into it and go, how do I feel about that? And could I do something like that? And when she said, I built it, I was like, I get it.
That's really amazing. And there are all these things we're told about certain institutions like marriage where they don't tell you everything. You have to be a good wife and you have to sacrifice for your spouse, but they don't really tell you about how painful that can be. And
I think Griffin brings up a really great point because literally Betty Broderick said, I built our brand. She's like, no, I built this. And who are you to step into my beautiful life?
Yeah.
Do you think Elizabeth Broderick was a bad Elizabeth?
Yeah, I do. I think there's something interesting when I hear these stories. And I was like, we're all a little bad Elizabeth. If I was growing up in that time without any therapy, without options, 4 kids, I got 2 kids. You got 4 kids? That's a lot of kids. You can understand how it could push someone into complete chaos. And so is she a bad Elizabeth? Sure, she's bad. But I also understand that I could have been her and you could have been her. And as you know more information, you can make better choices. But that was the information that she had. And so she made the choices that she made. But I can understand how someone could snap. I think bad Elizabeth is a bad Elizabeth, but I understand why.
were there ways they could have improved their communication with one another? Like, it seems like she probably stewed on her anger.
I would say that she missed her opportunity to figure out what was better for her. If you're focused on him, you're going to miss what's for you. And so I think that if you've got 4 kids and you've got money, sometimes the split is actually the opportunity for you to go get your best life. And so I think maybe if I was going to give her a piece of advice, it would be focus on yourself. Stop focusing on him. You cannot control him. Take your $16,000 a month and run.
And when he came home with a Corvette before they got divorced, she knew like midlife crisis is happening. And I agree with you. He was going through that time.
Yeah.
And so she should have taken time for herself.
Don't you also think, I mean, I was just having this conversation about Monica Lewinsky, also the pressure of women, and that was placed on women to each other and just their individual pressure. I think culturally, the conversation was maybe it was about her failing instead of about her husband making bad choices. Monica Lewinsky was made into a villain. Monica Lewinsky is currently a hero now to this younger generation.
The other thing, too, is that, you went from Los Angeles to New York. Now you're in Madrid. Tell us about being an American living in Madrid.
Well, I don't want to romanticize it, but I have to romanticize it. It is actually amazing. It's an incredible shift. It's shifting my nervous system to live here and to watch my kids grow up here. Watching my 5-year-old speak Spanish because he's picking it up on the playground, incredible. I am in Spanish school. I go to school 5 days a week, 4 hours a day. I am on a student visa. I'm 43 years old. I went back to school.
That's awesome.
It's also interesting to watch America from a distance because, of course, I was watching it from inside, like everybody is doing. But when you go out, you start hearing the way other people think about your country and your culture and the ways that we are more cold in America. Spanish people are very warm, very passionate, very friendly, very touchy-feely. And we are very much, give me space. When you walk down a sidewalk in Madrid, if you're walking at a person, they will not move.
So you did you. I really enjoyed you a lot.
Thank you.
It's great. And also, I love just anything shot in New York makes me excited.
The best.
I know that you studied at Carnegie Mellon. Did you ever imagine, because this is almost Shakespearean, how did your training impact this kind of role?
Well, it is Shakespearean. On set, I was calling it Greek. I was like, this is Greek theater. Like the sins of the father passed on to the son. The thing that I think going to drama school prepared me for the most was the chaos of the business. And again, I'm just now realizing it, to put on your mask. Like a flight attendant, when it's turbulent, you still have to be coasting. Joining that show was different. It was a different experience because that show was such a big hit. And filming day one on a show that and you know the star, and we all knew the pressure. It's the finale season. My insides were turbulent. I think that going to drama school trains you to relax, trust your instincts, trust your instrument. And from that day, it was like we were soaring. It went so well.
Just wondering what's up for next year in Madrid, anything coming up? I think you're in Spinal Tap.
It was the craziest shoot of my career. I've never done anything like it. I was a fan of all of those guys. I had seen all of their movies. They are exactly what you think they are. They're exactly those guys. There's no script. The entire thing is improv. He yells action and you go for 15 minutes. It's just say whatever you want. It's chaos for an actor that's so used to like, please stand on your mark, take after take, 15-minute long, 20-minute long take. And then they were like, okay, we got it. It was like a liberating way to work. Terrifying, but liberating.
And I loved, obviously, The Flight Attendant and you and Dear White People and all your work. So thank you for joining us.
You're the best.
Well, you are. And I'm so jealous of you. Well, I might see you in Madrid.
I am too. I want to go to Madrid. What was the drink you mentioned earlier?
Tinto Verano. Let's go. Let's go to tapas. Vámonos.
That's wonderful.
Chicos.
Thanks to our guest, Griffin Matthews, who joined us from Madrid. Look out for him in the film Spinal Tap 2, The End Continues. If you want more information on Betty Broderick, you can find that in the show notes.
Thank you for listening to Bad Elizabeth. Please rate and review the show on places like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We are Bad Elizabeth Pod on Instagram and Substack.
Feel free to email us at badelizabethpod@gmail.com if you have any questions or comments.
Bad Elizabeth is recorded at Jet Road Studios. It is hosted by me, Gideon Evans.
And me, Kathy Egan Taylor. It is produced and engineered by Will Beckton, and our executive producer is Amber Beckton.
Our theme music was composed by Alexis Guardado and Danny Gray. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.